In this video there will be a range of forgiveness quotes and affirmations from various famous teachers like Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Joyce Meyer, Catherine Ponda, Louise Hay, and many more. Forgiveness. The practice of forgiveness is our most important contribution to the healing of the world. Whatever our religion, we know that if we really want to love, we must first learn to forgive before anything else. Mother Teresa. Forgiveness is for yourself because it frees you. It lets you out of that prison you put yourself in. We may not know how to forgive, and we may not want to forgive. But the very fact we say we are willing to forgive begins the healing practice. True forgiveness is a self-healing process which starts with you and gradually extends to everyone else. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? Forgive yourself and stop punishing yourself. We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Mahatma Gandhi. Of the strong. Mahatma Gandhi. Forgiveness is unlocking the door to set someone free and realizing you were the prisoner. Forgiveness doesn't make the other person right. It makes you free. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hatred. It is a power that breaks the chains of bitterness and the shackles of selfishness. Forgiveness does not mean that we suppress anger. Forgiveness means that we have asked for a miracle. The ability to see through mistakes that someone has made to the truth that lies in all of our hearts. Forgiveness is not always easy. At times, it feels more painful than the wound we suffered. To forgive the one that inflicted it. And yet, there is no peace without forgiveness. Attack thoughts towards others are attack thoughts towards ourselves. The first step in forgiveness is the willingness to forgive. Forgiveness is manifested mercy. It is life in action. Not love based on a feeling, but love based on a decision, an intentional choice to obey God. By far the strongest poison to the human spirit is the inability to forgive oneself or another person. Forgiveness is no longer an option but a necessity for healing. We all agree that forgiveness is a beautiful idea until we have to practice it. Those who cannot forgive others break the bridge over which they themselves must pass. When you forgive, you in no way change the past. But you sure do change the future. Forgiveness is not an occasional act, it is a constant attitude. Never forget the three powerful resources you always have available to you: love, prayer, and forgiveness. We are all full of weakness and errors. Let us mutually pardon each other our follies. It is the first law of nature. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. When you hold resentment toward another, you are bound to that person or condition by an emotional link that is stronger than steel. Forgiveness is the only way to dissolve that link and get free. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. The most miserable prison in the world is the prison we make for ourselves. When we refuse to show mercy, our thoughts become shackled, our emotions are chained. The will is almost paralyzed. But when we show mercy, all of these bonds are broken. and we enter into a joyful liberty that frees us to share God's love with others. True forgiveness is when you can say, "Thank you for that experience." He that cannot forgive others breaks the bridge over which he must pass himself. For every man has need to be forgiven. Forgiveness is a sign that the person who has wronged you means more to you than the wrong they have dealt. Without forgiveness, life is governed by an endless cycle of resentment and retaliation. You can't forgive without loving. And I don't mean sentimentality. I don't mean mush. I mean having enough courage to stand up and say, "I forgive, I'm finished with it." Forgiveness is God's invention for coming to terms with a world in which people are unfair to each other and hurt each other deeply. He began by forgiving us, and He invites us all to forgive each other. Those who cannot forgive others break the bridge over which they themselves must pass. Forgiveness is an inner correction that lightens the heart. It is for our peace of mind first, being at peace. We will now have peace to give to others. And this is the most permanent and valuable gift we can possibly give. There is no love without forgiveness. And there is no forgiveness without love. A happy marriage is the union of two good forgivers. Our capacity to make peace with another person and with the world depends very much on our capacity to make peace with ourselves. To err is human, to forgive, divine. Forgiveness is taking seriously the awfulness of what has happened when you are treated unfairly. Forgiveness is not pretending that things are other than the way they are. It's one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. To forgive. Forgive everybody. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. It is about letting go of another person's throat. The more you know yourself, the more you forgive yourself. Today I forgive all those who have ever offended me. I give my love to all thirsty hearts, both to those who love me and to those who do not love me. To begin loving people today, we must close the door on the past. And that cannot happen without forgiveness. Forgive those who have hurt you. For your sake, not because they deserve it. When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. Forgiveness is the remission of sins. For it is by this that what has been lost and was found is saved from being lost again. In the presence of God, nothing stands between Him and us. We are forgiven, but we cannot feel His presence. If anything is allowed to stand between ourselves and others, when you forgive, you must cancel the debt. Do not spend your life paying and collecting debts. The ineffable joy of forgiving and being forgiven forms an ecstasy that might well arouse the envy of the gods. I firmly believe a great many prayers are not answered because we are not willing to forgive someone. The practice of peace and reconciliation is one of the most vital and artistic of human actions. Forgiveness in no way requires that you trust the one you forgive. Not to forgive is to be imprisoned by the past, by old grievances that do not permit life to proceed with new business. You can forgive a fool because he only runs in one direction and doesn't deceive anybody. It's the deceivers who make you feel bad. Only the brave know how to forgive. A coward never forgave, it is not in his nature. Good to forgive, best to forget. Forgiveness is for yourself because it frees you. It lets you out of that prison you put yourself in. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Forgiveness is the answer to the child's dream of a miracle by which what is broken is made whole again. What is soiled is made clean again. And if your friend does evil to you, say to him, I forgive you for what you did to me. But how can I forgive you for what you did to yourself? Forgiveness is choosing to love. It is the first skill of self-giving love. Without forgiveness, there's no future. You can forgive someone almost anything. But you cannot tolerate everything. We don't have to tolerate what people do just because we forgive them for doing it. Forgiving heals us personally. To tolerate everything only hurts us all in the long run. There is no revenge so complete as forgiveness. It seems that most people need to experience a great deal of suffering before they will relinquish resistance and accept. Before they will forgive. Vengeance is having a videotape planted in your soul that cannot be turned off. It plays the painful scene over and over again inside your mind. And each time it plays you feel the clap of pain again. Forgiving turns off the videotape of pained memory. Forgiving sets you free. Forgive all who have offended you, not for them, but for yourself. People can be more forgiving than you can imagine. But you have to forgive yourself. Let go of what's bitter and move on. Genuine forgiveness does not deny anger but faces it head on. Self-awareness is not self-centeredness and spirituality is not narcissism. Know thyself is not a narcissistic pursuit. Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. What power has love but forgiveness? In other words, by its intervention what has been done can be undone. What good is it otherwise? To forgive is the highest, most beautiful form of love. In return, you will receive untold peace and happiness. The forgiving state of mind is a magnetic power for attracting good. Jesus understands our weaknesses and sins. And he forgives us if we allow ourselves to be forgiven. When a deep injury is done us we never recover until we forgive. If you wish to travel far and fast, travel light. Take off all your envies, jealousies, unforgiveness, selfishness and fears. His heart was as great as the world. But there was no room in it to hold the memory of a wrong. Everything is just as it needs to be. And if we would forgive, our minds and hearts would open and we could see another possibility. If we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each man's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility. Forgiveness is not about the other person or what they did. Forgiveness is for you and about you. It is often easier to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. I learned that true forgiveness includes total self-acceptance. And out of acceptance wounds are healed and happiness is possible again. Keep in mind, hurting people often hurt other people as a result of their own pain. If somebody is rude and inconsiderate, you can almost be certain that they have some unresolved issues inside. They have some major problems, anger, resentment, or some heartache. They are trying to cope with or overcome. If a good person does you wrong, act as though you had not noticed it. They will make note of this and not remain in your debt long. Everyone says that forgiveness is a lovely idea until he has something to forgive yet tasted one of the most sublime enjoyments of life. You will never forgive anyone more than God has already forgiven you. Forgiveness is the final form of love. It is right for him who asks forgiveness for his offenses to grant it to others. Anger makes you smaller, while forgiveness forces you to grow beyond what you were. Mistakes are always forgivable, if one has the courage to admit them. The hatred you're carrying is a live coal in your heart, far more damaging to yourself than to them. Forgiveness is the choice to see people as they are now. When we're mad at people, we're angry because of something they said or did before this moment. By letting go of the past, we make room for miracles to replace our grievances. Sometimes I wonder, will God ever forgive us for what we've done to each other? Then I look around and I realize, God left this place a long time ago. Forgiveness unleashes joy. It brings peace. It washes the slate clean. It sets all the highest values of love in motion. Forgiveness is an act of the will, and the will can function regardless of the temperature of the heart. Let us forgive each other. Only then will we live in peace. Forgiveness is a virtue of the brave. Forgiving is not forgetting. It is remembering and letting go. Forgiveness is the sweetest revenge. Forgiveness must be immediate, whether or not a person asks for it. Trust must be rebuilt over time. Trust requires a track record. One forgives to the degree that one loves. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass against us. Forgiveness is the key to action and freedom. Be assured that if you knew all, you would pardon all. Forgiving is love's toughest work, and love's biggest risk. If you twist it into something it was never meant to be, it can make you a doormat or an insufferable manipulator. Forgiving seems almost unnatural. Our sense of fairness tells us people should pay for the wrong they do. But forgiving is love's power to break nature's rule. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. You will know that forgiveness has begun when you recall those who hurt you and feel the power to wish them well. Learning to forgive is much more useful than merely picking up a stone and throwing it at the object of one's anger. The more so when the provocation is extreme. For it is under the greatest adversity that there exists the greatest potential for doing good, both for oneself and others. Forgiveness entails the authentic acceptance of our own worthiness as human beings. The understanding that mistakes are opportunities for growth, awareness and the cultivation of compassion, and the realization that the extension of love to ourselves and others is the glue that holds the universe together. Forgiveness is not a set of behaviors, but an attitude. What is tolerance? It is the consequence of humanity. We are all formed of frailty and error. Let us pardon reciprocally each other's folly. That is the first law of nature. We tend to lack humility toward love, to patronize it rather than bow before it, to put mundane considerations before the emotional need to hold someone in our arms. Forgiveness is choosing to love. Mahatma Gandhi. A mistake is always forgivable, rarely a inexcusable and always unacceptable. You do not have to hold on to the pain, to hold on to the memory. If one by one he counted people out for the least sin, it wouldn't take us long to get so we had no one left to live with. For to be social is to be forgiving. Forgiveness is the highest and the most difficult of all moral lessons. The remarkable thing is that we really love our neighbor as ourselves. We do unto others as we do unto ourselves. We hate others when we hate ourselves. We are tolerant toward others when we tolerate ourselves. We forgive others when we forgive ourselves. We are prone to sacrifice others when we are ready to sacrifice ourselves. How does one know if she was forgiven? You tend to feel sorrow over the circumstance instead of rage. You tend to feel sorry for the person rather than angry with him. You tend to have nothing left to say about it all. Forgive me my nonsense, as I also forgive the nonsense of those that think they talk sense. Forgive yourself for your faults and your mistakes and move on. Forgiveness is the giving, and so the receiving, of life. I learned that true forgiveness includes total acceptance. The first step in forgiveness is the willingness to forgive. Our past is a story existing only in our minds. Look, analyze, understand, and forgive. Then, as quickly as possible, chuck it. You are helpful, and you are loved, and you are forgiven, and you are not alone. When women love, they forgive everything. It is a very delicate job to forgive a man, without lowering him in his own estimation, and yours too. To be kind, honest, and have positive thoughts. To forgive those who harm us and treat everyone as a friend. To help those who are suffering and never to consider ourselves superior to anyone else. Even if this advice seems rather simplistic. Make the effort of seeing whether by following it you can find greater happiness. Dalai Lama. Forgiveness is almost a selfish act because of its immense benefits to the one who forgives. If you haven't forgiven yourself something, how can you forgive others? It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. I can forgive, but I cannot forget, is only another way of saying I will not forgive. If any dust of imperfection cling to your heart, be not troubled, but consume it immediately in the fire of divine love. And, sorrowfully asking forgiveness, continue to live in peace. Nothing brings families together faster than forgiveness. That should make it step number 1. But most of us find forgiving hard. We associate it with weakness and losing when actually, the reverse is true. When you forgive, you gain strength and come out a winner. You break free of control by the other person's actions. Forgiveness is a gift of high value. Yet its cost is nothing. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. William Shakespeare. Forgiveness is like faith. You have to keep providing it. Forgiveness is the economy of the heart. Forgiveness saves the expense of anger, the cost of hatred, the waste of spirits. To love is human, it is also human to forgive. Genuine forgiveness is participation, reunion, overcoming the powers of estrangement. We cannot love unless we have accepted forgiveness. And the deeper our experience of forgiveness is, the greater is our love. The universe is wired with the electricity of God. Each of us is a lamp. It doesn't matter the size or shape of the lamp. It only matters that the lamp is plugged in. With every prayer, every thought of forgiveness, every meditation, every act of love, we plug in. The more of us who plug in, the more the darkness of the world will be cast from our midst. Today, let's all increase love's wattage. Forgiving does not erase the bitter past. A healed memory is not a deleted memory. Instead, forgiving what we cannot forget creates a new way to remember. We change the memory of our past into a hope for our future. Love is an act of endless forgiveness.